Figure 5.1 is going to be our introduction into the assembly module. We're going to make this fairly simple L block and then use it to put these combinations of these different parts. I'll probably go a little bit beyond the the drawings for the exercise, but this will get us a good start. So 30 by 30 by 15. Um, let's go ahead and create a new part. And this is in millimeters, so open up a metric part. So from the front plane, and we haven't really used the thin feature, so I will see what that looks like real quick. And I want to select both of those and make them equal. And we're going to put a dimension. I think I made those equal. All right, so that goes fully defined. And just double check the length. So since the wall is 15, I can go into, go back to the front so we can see which direction this is going. With a thin feature, even though this is open profile, once that thin feature is checked, we're going to go one direction and 15 millimeters on the wall. And then make sure to toggle it to the interior so that we have the shape. Doesn't come up very often, but it does have some quick uses. So if I autofill it, 5 millimeter, it's going to put little radiuses in. I don't need to fill it. Just be aware that if this was quasi sheet metal, then we would be interested in having that that bend in there. So I'm going to do a file save as, see where this goes to. This is going to be assignment 4. And our P5-1 L block. And we'll save it. All right, so an assembly is one or more parts. One really doesn't do much for you, so realistically we'd say 2. But when we go into the assembly modules, so either File, New, or over to the New and Assembly. So we're in millimeters, grams, and seconds. It defaults. I don't want the layout, so I'm going to collapse that up a little bit so that we can see the other options here. The open part is listed in the documents. If there's nothing in there, we're just starting fresh, we can do a browse and go find a part to insert into the assembly. Start this command when creating a new assembly. Yes. Automatic browse when we're creating new assembly. I think it's going to the last folder, and then we want the graphics preview, so it'll see. We'll be able to see the part as we bring it in. The rotate and context toolbar in 2022. That was actually a bar that popped up. The 2023, I believe, is well, we'll see in a minute. Fix float component on insert, only fix the first component. So if this part is drawn in the orientation that we want it, it will come in, it will be fixed, and even though I don't like fixed in the sketches, this is a pretty good use of fix. So there's no configuration. Oh, it did come up with the rotate bar. So X, Y, and Z, and I like the orientation. Oh, and my second iteration of error checking, I did not get the depth to 30, so that will be a good correction. All right, so if I move this around, there's no origin shown. If we zoom in, zoom out, but to fix origin to origin, all I need to do is come over and hit the OK. So one of the things we can do, I see that I made a mistake or I overlooked the dimension. I was having so much fun with the the extrude, and out of the assembly, rather than going back into the part, going back into the feature, I can go right to the component level because we have the assembly level, and the assembly has 3 planes. We have the component level, and then there's 3 planes within the component level. Bringing in the first part then just makes the origin same orientation that it is in the part. That's the orientation it is in the assembly. So since I missed the dimension, I can double click and type in the 30, hit rebuild. It gives me the desired result, and that change will migrate back to the parts. So you do want to be careful because it's bidirectional that we would have both of those ability to change in the assembly and in the part. So I need to bring in another piece, and we're going to go insert component, and I can bring in just another item. So I'm going to follow the A, B, and C, and then I will do a couple of examples. So for the assignment, let's fly this back in here. We have A and B, and C, D, and E, and F and G. All right, so just a couple different ways to make that approach. All right, so I got to figure out the best way to do this in the assembly. Yeah, we might as well go ahead and make each one of these separate, just to avoid the inevitable confusion that I'm going to generate. So as we go through the assembly, in this case, I am left-clicking and moving the component. Notice the move component up here highlights and is moving around. So we can go, in our hierarchy, I could go plane to plane. Let's see, that's not the one I'm manipulating, so let's expand that one out. So I collapse the first component, and since these are the same component, I have instance 1 and instance 2. And if I were to delete one of these, it would go to instance 3 and 4. It wouldn't replace instance 2. So those numbers are arbitrary. It's just telling us as a placeholder that there's 2 instances of that block. Right, so if I wanted to, I could go front plane to front plane and make that coincident. All right, but I want to look at it in the terms of the mate references rather than the context to start. This will be a little more explanation. So the in context matches just like in the part files when we're setting relations. The mate relations are very similar, so this terminology should not be brand new, but just a different application. So coincident, coincident, parallel, parallel, perpendicular, perpendicular, we don't lock, distance and angle, which we will get to, and then there are 2 possible solutions to most mates. So if I anti-align, it's going to flip it around. If I align, flips it around. Aligned, anti-aligned. And then on the context, undo whatever you just did, because just like in our sketch relations, there's a possibility that 2 or more relations or dimension or something would put this in conflict and cause it to go over defined. So when I hit OK, it's now in that location. Right, so I can move this back and forth, up and down, and it looks like it's going that way, but it's not. Or it better not be. So if I go to Control 5 and look at the top, I cannot move this in this orientation up and down. I can go left and right. From the front, I can go top to bottom, and rotating it around, there is a perceptual separation always going on that it looks like it can move, but it's not. And the The other thing is when I'm middle mouse buttoning, the the rotation is for the view. I am rotating everything. If I am moving or I can rotate the parts, then it will just be the one part and everything else will stay um, in the same orientation. One of the things that happens with the origin, and the origin is handy to start with, but each part having an origin, at some point they're going to be kind of like the relations and start to be a little distracting. So we don't need them. I'm not going to worry about them just yet. All right, so we did a plane to plane, and I have a flyout. So I just want to see if there's another plane that I could possibly use. Maybe the right plane of the second component to, and then you're going to get really good at that middle mouse button to a face. All right, and that is not the orientation that I want for A, and actually it's not the correct faces, so, or rather the correct selections on the faces. I want, let's see, I'm going to want that face to go to the other side. So I'm going to deselect that one, zoom in a little bit, so middle mouse wheel, scroll up and down. And that's a little closer. If we look at the aligned, anti-aligned, which one is going to give us our best choice? So, and then last will be face to face. Right. And same thing, if I look at the aligned, anti-aligned, it's going to warn me that one of the other mates could not be solved because of that particular change. So it's just letting know that it reversed something for me. All right, so at the bottom we have the three mates, and then in each of the components we'll have the same three mates, but this is just the mates to that part. As we bring in more parts, I don't need to see mates to instance 1 and 3 and instance 2, so I can filter. This is kind of a filter down to just those items, and it'll help us organize um, our mates and make it a little easier to navigate. So this is P5-1A.